Hello and welcome back. We're here in Tokyo with the final OP11 CS over in Japan. So OP12 came out this week in Japan. So there's 1 week before it's legal, same as it is for us in the West. And we're entering the top 16 of the Tokyo CS. And as you can see here, this is a pretty exciting top 16. We've got 4 Bello Bettys, 4 purple Luffys, 2 red Zoros, 2 green purple Luffys, 2 green yellow Laws, 1 blue purple Luffy, just 1. At the start of this format, we were seeing blue purple Luffy dominate these top cuts. Now he's down to just 1, and 1 lone Robert Lucci. So this top 16, you can tell. Blue purple Luffy was dominating this format for Japan, and they've adapted. We see lots of aggro decks in the Bessie and the Zoro. Purple Luffy and green purple Luffy also very aggressive in their own right. Green yellow Law is a really interesting one. We've not seen green yellow Law do anything really throughout most of OP10 and most of OP11. However, right at the end, he's squeaking in not just 1, but 2. That's pretty exciting. I really hope we get to see some green yellow Law gameplay through this top 16. See if he can go all the way. I have heard that outside of the removal matchups, green yellow Law actually has a decent time into a lot of this meta. You've got lots of blockers and that big 7-cost Law that can heal you into the aggro matchups. And into blue purple Luffy, the slower decks, well, you just spam the board with cards like Cavendish, Blocker Law, get value by reusing your searchers, and then those big 7-9 Laws are just outside the range where they can be easily removed by blue purple Luffy with cards like 9-cost Linlin and Raging Tiger. So it demands Red Rock, and whilst blue purple Luffy does run Red Rock, he doesn't love using it, because it means doing not much else for this turn. And as we go into this top 16 match, let me know in the comments, what deck do you think is going to win this tournament? I mean, looking at the format, anything really goes. And we could see Betty take down her first tournament. Looks like a fairly favourable bracket for Betty. Only really maybe those Zoros and the 1 Lucci that they're looking to avoid. Blue-purple Luffy looks like to have a task on his hands. This matchup bracket is full of aggro. Most of these decks really built to try and counter and take advantage of blue-purple Luffy's slow start by establishing a massive board going wide. And you never know, the 1 Rob Lucci looks pretty favourable. Lot of aggro. Green-yellow Law, whilst I haven't seen much gameplay of Lucci versus Law, with that new 2-cost beige, that's a very impactful card. In the past, Rob Lucci has had a very favourable matchup into Law, so you'd have to imagine that's one he's not really worried about dodging. Maybe just that 1 sort of blue-purple Luffy that's a little bit of a tougher matchup for Rob Lucci. And we do see Rob Lucci entering into this top 16 match. So what will he be playing against? This is pretty interesting. Rob Lucci in this format has really changed his build. Much more focused around establishing that 10-cost Kuzan into that blue-purple Luffy matchup. And then sort of going from there, establishing the infinite loops with the Rebekahs and the Mancheris and Tempest Kicks. It goes crazy. The new age Lucci build is really exciting. Little bit of a slow start usually for them, but their end game is crazy. Oh, we're against green yellow Law. I was really hoping to see some green yellow Law throughout these matches. So green yellow Law came out in set 10. Did kind of nothing because the meta wasn't very favourable for him. Reasonably tough Teach matchup. Pretty tough Lucci matchup. Sort of just pushed him out of the format. But with blue purple Luffy and aggro being the main things that you see nowadays, maybe it's Law's time to shine. This is pretty exciting because if these Law players do well, that can inspire many more Law players in the West. And we're just entering into our format and Law's getting it a nice little buff from that Bonnie starter deck. That 2-cost Kid and Killer. Going to increase his consistency quite significantly, which I think personally is quite exciting. You've got to imagine that this Law player, I believe they usually like to go second, so they can try and establish 2 Dons worth of things, and then on that second turn they can use their leader effect by playing out that Bonnie blocker, which is pretty funky. However, Lucci often likes to go second as well, trying to establish that 4-cost Kuzan on 4, or 4-cost Laboon. And the impactful cards in this matchup, really, I think it's going to be on the Lucci side. If they can find their 3-cost Brooks and their 4-cost Luccis, it's going to be very tough for Law to sort of get much value. Law really needs those 1 costs, that Luffy and that Bonnie, to stick, to sort of build up his hand and develop his value engine. Lucci, very, very good at removing 1 costs. And we do see the hands here. Looks like the Law player is going to be going first. So unlikely to see a leader effect on that second turn. And the hand does have double searches, which is great for Law. There's that 2-cost Bedge that I was talking about. This is a new card out of OP11. When one of your Supernova type cards would be removed from play by any kind of effect, you can just put it in your life instead, giving you a heal. And with Law's leader effect especially, just lets you play it again. It's kind of crazy. We also saw a 7-cost Law and a blocker Law. And in the Rob Lucci's hand, we see an interesting card here. That's a Gizmonda, a 2-2 chump blocker with the CP type. Sort of says to me that he's playing either Spandam or Spandine. We also see Khalifa, Laboon, that'll be really nice on 4. Shirahoshi, that gives a -4 on play and is a little chump blocker. Kind of like a Rebecca Hina in a trench coat. And then we also see a Jack. Classic. You can't beat Jack. He's a pretty cool guy if you can find the time to establish him safely. So I imagine we will see that Laboon come down pretty rapidly. Laboon reducing the cost of one of Law's 5 costs to 1. Obviously very impactful if he can find some removal. No Brooks and no Lucci's is pretty not optimal for this Lucci player. If you can't remove Law's stuff, I mean, Law goes crazy. The combos that the Law deck has access to are just bonkers. And we are getting started here with the Law player. Going to start on 1, probably with that Luffy. And we do see the Luffy come down. We'll see what he's looking for. Some kind of really good character to trigger out early. The Bonnie's alright. We do see Zeus. That's an interesting new 2k out of set 11. Zeus able to KO one of your opponent's 5s at the cost of taking a life. Pretty interesting. We'll see a couple 2ks there. We've got an X-Drake and a Bedge. Bedge could help this player set up his life to trigger something out. And it does look like he's going to opt for the Bedge. That could be a pretty nice turn. That could be a pretty nice play, maybe on that 5-Don turn, to put a useful character into life and then play them out. We are sort of still looking for that useful character. We do have the blocker Law. He's pretty good. But you do like to establish something like Cavendish early. Cavendish, incredible card for this deck. Letting you restand those Dons to get even more value. The Rob Lucci begins their turn, draws a Tempest Kick, plays out Gizmonda, and just a pass. Law doesn't have that much removal. We've seen that Zeus, and we do just draw into a Zeus, but you don't really want to be using Zeus on a chump blocker. And Law doesn't have that many ways, certainly in the early game, to interact with Lucci's board. Towards the end of the game, we have access to cards like Hody Jones to clean up, but early on, not so much. We are going to see the Law dropping 1 Don for the Bonnie, 1 more for her effect. Getting another search, going to distract that Lucci player. Got to attack into the Bonnie unless he can get the removal for it. And we do see the search. Nothing too crazy. Some more searchers. A Scratchman Apu 2k. Another one of those Bedge blockers. He's pretty good. And another blocker Law. Interesting to see what this player goes for here. More searchers, always pretty good for the green-yellow Law deck. And does look like he's eyeing up that Luffy. We could see him play that for the 1 remaining Don he has this turn. And just a swing of 5 from lead. And it looks like we are going to see that 5 from lead. I think Lucci likely to take. Lucci generally likes to take their first swing. Although Law is pretty aggressive, so you never know. Looks like we did take, and looks like we've got a trigger. Now, the only trigger that I'm aware of that Lucci plays, regularly anyway, is that Tempest Kick. That Tempest Kick's trigger does KO 3. So could KO any one of these searchers. Likely the Luffy, I think. This is 4-cost Lucci. This is a character that I'm sure this Lucci player is looking to see. Taking out all these searchers really just turns off Green Yellow Law's leader effect and denies them of so much value. It's crazy. Law does need 5 total cost of characters on their boards to even activate their leader effect. So not live yet. And we are going to see that Tempest Kick trigger KO the Luffy, which is pretty good. And getting that character off the board, it's one less thing to deal with, right? And looks like we are going to be resting 1 for another Luffy. And the Law player going to do one more search. Do you see an 8-cost Kid? 8-cost Kid is a double-edged sword into Lucci. It makes them very hard for them to apply pressure. But they can remove it if you're not playing cards like Rosinante. And whilst we do have the Bedge to put it in life, that Lucci's not too sad to see that go to life. Does look like we're going to take that Cavendish. Makes a lot of sense. Cavendish on that 5-Don turn. Going to be really powerful. Play it out. Restand 2 Dons, you can put one of those on your leader, and then use your leader effect to play out something else. We also have that Bedge, so we could see him maybe put the Blocker Law into life to get some pretty crazy value. Lucci draws another Tempest Kick for turn. It's a good card. I'm not sure it's one you want to see right now. We are going to see 5 into the Bonnie character, milling a Soldier and another Soldier, so still no KO options. Not that we have Rebecca or Mancherry to recycle anyway. Bonnie naturally goes down, and looks like we're just going to establish the Laboon. Pretty simple turn for the Lucci player here. Swing, and then a Laboon. And we do see the Law player going to 5. So there's got a few options here for this Law player. We do have the Zeus that could take out this Laboon. This Laboon is very threatening on the board, right? Brings down one of your 5 costs to just 1, and then can be cleared very, very easily with Lucci or with Brooke. The Lucci player doesn't have any of those, but the Law player doesn't know that. He's going to go with that Cavendish in the first instance, though. I think that makes a lot of sense. And we are going to see 1 Don going on the leader, and a swing of 6 coming into Rob Lucci. We do have a Khalifa, but I think where we really need to see a KO option, taking this seems smart. What do we get? We got a Spandine. Okay, so if we can mill a Lucci, that can resummon him if we can get enough CP-type targets in the trash. We are going to see that Bedge come down, likely taking one of those lives and putting that Blocker Law into life. Indeed, we do see that, and we saw a Zeus coming out of life. So we're probably going to see this Law come out here with the leader effect, picking up the Bedge. Law comes down, picks up the Luffy, and we've got choices. We can either play the Luffy, or we can play the Zeus. Very aggressive, going down to 2 already. Getting rid of that Laboon is some pretty crazy value. It's going to be so hard for the Lucci player to remove anything on 6 without access to onboard reduction. That Laboon, reducing something like Cavendish to just 1 cost, is so impactful. Without that, they're really limited to removing only one thing with something like a Toy Soldier into a Lucci, if they have it, to remove one of the 5 costs. And we do indeed see the Zeus come down, going to take that life, KO the Laboon. Really aggressive play from this Law player. It's what you've got to do into Lucci. Lucci always wins the end of the game. You've got to kill him before he can safely establish his board and get to that late game safely. And we did see them pick up the Bonnie blocker off the life. Bonnie blocker, very powerful card. Lets you take one of those lives and then put a supernova type character back in for you to then trigger out with your leader effect, no doubt. We did see the Lucci player going up to his 6th Don turn, and we did see him draw for turn. His hand is covering the card, so I can't quite tell what he's got. Will be interesting to see once we get a better angle. Look at those Don cards; those have been riffled to death. That's crazy. In contrast to the Law player's gold shiny Dons. Looks like that last card is... He's hiding it. I'm on the edge of my seat. But this Lucci player with the rest of their hand, it's really not looking too hot. Doesn't look like we can be able to remove much at all. Which is quite concerning, as... looks like it's a 2-cost, 1-legged Toy Soldier. So yeah, that's really not going to help unless we can mill that Rob Lucci. If we can mill a Rob Lucci, you can then use the 1-legged Toy Soldier and the Spandine to summon the Lucci and maybe remove something at least. However, we've got to mill that Lucci now, right? So I imagine we may well see a swing of 6 come in, perhaps. Then if you mill that Lucci, you can still use the Soldier to debuff the same character down to 1. And then the Spandine can maybe summon the Lucci to KO the Zeus and whatever character is reduced. But you've got to remember that Spandine needs 3 CP type targets in the trash to use his effect. And Rob Lucci also needs 3 targets in the trash to use his effect. It is possible. We've got 4 in trash at the minute. With the mill, that goes to 6, and with the Soldier, that goes to 7. One of those that comes out is obviously going to be the Lucci. But we would need 2 CP targets in the trash, and... No, it's not possible. I don't believe it's possible. No, it's not possible with the current hand, unless you want to swing 5 and then just burn a Tempest Kick for no reason. Which... that's not great, because if you swing 5, it's a free block with the Law, you're not getting any value. So yeah, because we only have 1 CP type target in the trash already, Not that Lucci plus Toy Soldier plate not really going to be online for the player, and he does go with the Mill 2. Mill's a Tempest Kick and a Shirahoshi. So that's all 4 Tempest Kicks we've seen already in this game. And pretty crazy. And if he had gone for some kind of Lucci plate, it wouldn't have worked out. We didn't see the Lucci. Lore player does go with the block and the 2k of the Zeus. Makes a lot of sense. You're already at 2 lives. You don't want to go down anymore. You don't want to get aggroed out of the game by Lucci. And we do see the draw 2, trash 2, with the 4-cost Khalifa for the remaining Don. Looks like we drew into a Lucci and a Rebecca. Both very, very powerful targets. Looks like we're going to see that Lucci and maybe the Spandine hit the trash. Because now that we've got a lot of Tempest Kicks and a lot of cards in trash, Spandine going to be live. And Rebecca summoning Lucci is always better than just playing Lucci. So we may see the ditch on those two. And then next turn, maybe we can do some Tempest Kicks and do a Lucci play. We are going to see the ditch on the Jack and the Spandine, though. Opting to keep the Lucci instead. It's pretty interesting. And then we do see this Lore player start their 7 Don turn. Managing to keep 2 guys on the board already. As Lore, you've got to be pretty happy with that, right? That's a pretty crazy turn of events. Getting to keep 2 guys against Lucci. He's got to be feeling pretty positive about this match now. And we do see the search with the Luffy. Nothing too crazy. We've got a couple Bedges in there. We've got a Carmel, which you can't search. We've got another Cavendish. But once you have 1 Cavendish on the board, you cannot play a second one. Otherwise, none of their effects will proc. We also see a 7-cost Lore. We've already got 1 7-cost Lore. We could take another. Or we could take a Cavendish, anticipating that Cavendish to be the primary target of the Lucci player. And if we need to establish another one, it's pretty good. Imagine we will see the Lore, the Cavendish, and looks like we're going towards the Cavendish. We do take the Cavendish there, very nice. And then we've got 6 Don remaining, but we can use the Cavendish we already have on the board to restand that last Don if we want to use the 7-cost Lore. And the 7-cost Lore will put a Don on our leader, so then we can use our leader effect, and we can get some... You can see the engine, right, of this Lore deck. It's once you establish a Cavendish, and like especially some other characters, this deck goes crazy. The combos are off the charts. It's just in that early game sometimes, if your stuff gets removed, it can be quite tricky. And it looks like we're eyeing up maybe 1 for the Bedge. No, we don't have a... We do have a Bedge. Yeah, there's 1 in there. Looks like we're just going to swing 6 with the Cavendish, restand 1 Don. So you've got to imagine he's looking for that 7-cost Lore play. With this remaining 7 total Don. And the Lucci player is facing a 6 on 5. Looks like he is going to take that one. No trigger. And we do see another Rebecca. Rebecca, a great card. But we're really in danger here, right? A lot of 6s coming in. This Lucci player does not have access to many 2Ks. 2 soldiers and a Khalifa already gone. And there's 1 soldier left in his hand. That's an important removal piece for the reduction. We do see another 6 from the blocker Lore. And the ditch on that soldier. That seems smart. You don't want to go down too early. All the way to 1. Even as Lucci, right? We can block her up with Rebecca. Green-Yellow Lore plays ways to rest those blockers towards that late game. We have access to Hody Jones, the best card of the game, for closing out a game. We do, as expected, see that 7-cost Lore. What are we going to put into life? Could be Cavendish, could be the Bonnie. If it's the Cavendish, we can't really play it out because it turns off our other one, which is obviously not great. We could see the Bonnie. Looks like we're going to see the Bedge, actually, deciding that this is the turn that we need to sort of counteract the removal from the Lucci. Seems pretty smart. 1 Don goes on to the leader. We will see a swing of 6. And then we'll see the leader effect maybe playing out that Bedge. We do see a swing of 6 into face. The Lucci doesn't have any more 2Ks, so it does decide to block with that Gismonda that we played all those turns ago. And then the Lore player making the tough decision on whether to play out that beige or not. Seems pretty good to me, because if the Lucci player does something like a Lucci on a couple of your targets, well, you can't protect the Zeus because he's not a supernova. And we are going to see that play bouncing the Luffy, flipping the Bedge, and deciding whether he wants to play it out. And we are going to see the play on the Bedge. But if the Lucci removes some of these supernovas, they just go to the top of the life, and then you can play them out with your leader effect. It's incredible. Such a crazy card that this deck got as late support in OP11. Imagine if he does like a double removal on 2 supernovas other than Bedge. They both go to life. That's crazy. And with the board presence that this lore player has now, the Lucci player can't really afford to take a turn to get rid of this Bedge. But the Lucci player has not managed to establish much of anything at all. So this Bedge is just going to get to sit there this turn, really. We've got to prioritize taking out cards like the Cavendish, the Lore, and maybe even the 7-cost Lore. Which is unfortunate, because then the Lore just gets to heal. And the Lucci player does not really get anywhere. So Lucci is going to start his turn up to 8 Don. And looks like we top decked. Is that a Brook? That looks like a Brook to me. Yeah, I believe that's a 3-cost Brook that he just top decked. Yeah, I think the commentators agree with me. This is definitely a 3-cost Brook. That card's very powerful. But when you've got such a little onboard reduction, it's going to be hard to find the line where you can use it. We could see something like Leader Effect plus Brook. Remove the Bedge for 4 Don. For 3 Don, excuse me. And then we've got 5 Don remaining. We could see Tempest Kick plus Lucci. Maybe removing just the Cavendish, but then he gets to keep that Lore on the board. The 5-cost Lore. As well as, of course, the 7-cost Lore. And without developing any blockers, it's pretty tough. And I don't believe we have a Lucci in the trash to use with our Spandine and Rebecca combo. If we'd trashed that Lucci on the previous turn, we could have seen something like a Rebecca Spandine Lucci, removing the Cavendish, the Brook and Leader Effect combo, removing the Bedge. And then we've got at least a blocker, right? We've got a blocker, but as it currently stands with no Lucci and trash, nothing for that Spandine to summon. We are going to start with a Tempest Kick. That makes a lot of sense. We're drawing into a 10-cost Kuzan, which is very bad at this point in the game. 10-cost Kuzan, much more of a card you want to see into blue-purple Luffy. We are going to see the -3 on the Cavendish. That's definitely the most important target to remove. 7-cost Lore, just a little bit too expensive to remove at this point in the game. Cavendish, much more likely to be able to be removed. We do see the second Tempest Kick come down. So we are likely to see a Lucci play here. But if we're Lucciing, we're not developing any blockers. And this Lore player is going to get to heal with that Bedge's effect. Lucci player deciding where he wants to put his -3. Looks like he's opting for that Lore. So both that Lore and that Cavendish now costing just 2. With the -1 from the Leader Effect. That's a 2 and a 1. That's the magic numbers for 4-cost Lucci. So we will be able to see 4-cost Lucci remove both of those, as we see Khalifa swinging in for 5. And we will see the Lore player counter out with the Bonnie. I think realistically, you can probably take one of these, given that you expect the Lucci to be KOing your stuff and get a heal, which is pretty crazy. We do see Kuzan, and I think that's another Khalifa, hit the trash off the mill. And -1, I believe, onto the Cavendish. It's got to be one of them, right? Doesn't really matter which. We are seeing the Lore player consider countering out once more. Does have that poo, but gives up that Bedge instead. 2k to counter the 6 into 5. And there, indeed, we do see the Lucci. I do wonder if we'd been able to trash that Lucci on the previous turn, whether something like a Brook to remove the Bedge into a Rebecca Spandine Lucci to remove one of them would have been better. But this way, we do at least get to remove the pressure from both those 5-cost characters by placing them in the life. Doesn't really advance your board very much, because the Lore player can just trigger those out again for no cost with the Leader Effect. But alleviating a turn's pressure, I mean, it could be worse, right? It could be worse. And we do see, I believe that was the Cavendish went to the top? I missed that a little bit. Let's see if we can go back just a second. And we do, yeah, it is the Cavendish on the top. The benefits of being able to watch back in post. If you were live commentating this, you can't really do that, but hopefully your co-commentator will be able to notice. And we do see the Lore player beginning their 9 Don turn. Fought back up to 4 life. It's where we started this game. It's crazy. That Bedge's effect, so impactful into these removal decks. We do see another 7-cost Lore as well. That 7-cost Lore is such a juicy card, man. You get so much value out of that Lore. It's crazy. And we do see 1 Don for the Luffy coming down. Another search for this Lore player. Further extending his hand advantage over the Lucci. What are we seeing there? We do see the 8-cost Kid. That could be something to consider. We've also got another Cavendish. That'll be our third one, I believe. Another Bonnie blocker. And some more searchers. Looks like we are eyeing up the Bonnie blocker. It seems pretty good. Getting blockers down at this point in the game when Lucci's got his back against the wall. He's pretty good. They're not going to be able to remove all your dudes, so if you can at least block 1 or 2 swings by battle, the value is there. And looks like we are eyeing up another 7 Don play. Maybe another one of those laws. As 1 Don does look to be going on to the leader. You do need 1 Don there for your leader's effect, but 7 cost law does provide that. He provides. What a guy. And looks like we might be seeing the leader effect come out early to proc out that Cavendish. Only going to get the restand on 1 Don if you do it like this, but still very powerful. And we do indeed see the pickup on the Luffy, the triggering out of the Cavendish with that leader's effect, restanding 1 more Don and bringing that guy back from the dead. That Bedge's effect, putting it into life, is so crazy. Being able to then just play it again for 1. Lucci's not going to love to see that. Such an improvement for this matchup. It's crazy how much difference just a little 2 costs can make. And we are going to see 7 for yet another 7 cost law. That 9k stat line is so big. Impossible for Lucci to counter out of, really. Lucci's a deck that does not play a ton of counter. And a 9 into 5 as early as this, pretty brutal. And the second one coming down is rough. And we did see the heal with the law. And we are going to see 8 at leader. And the Lucci player opts to take. And we see 9 at leader, and the Lucci has to take that as well. Does not have enough counter that he wants to give up. Lucci's down to 0. I think the writing's on the wall for this match. The law was able to apply so much pressure early on to this Lucci player that they weren't able to control the board efficiently. The law player's just been able to run away, playing out these characters, and the Bedge getting the heal, allowing him to play that Cavendish once again for just 1 Don. Really tough stuff. And another 10 cost. Another 10 cost Kuzan and another Brook. Man, if we saw those Brooks towards the start of the game, this could have been a completely different story. That Brook is so important to remove that law's searchers, to deny them the value. We've seen that law play the same Monkey D. Luffy around 3 times. It's been pretty crazy. When you can't remove their searchers, man, the law is just so much value. Lucci doesn't seem to have many options. You need to at least establish a blocker with one of those Rebeccas. We can maybe remove a couple cards, but we don't have any of those Tempest Kicks left. All of them are in the trash. So I don't really see a way for the Lucci player to get out of this one. We are going to see 5 into the leader. Milling 2. A Who's Who and a Jack. They're not very good. What do we see the -1 get put on? Not sure. Don't know if we saw that. Was he still thinking? He's still thinking, I think. We do have the Shirahoshi, and but we still don't have access to Rebecca Spandine Lucci. So all we can do is Rebecca Brook. We can only remove 1 thing here. That's really tough. That is very tough. All 10 Don, but not much to do with them. Maybe we'll establish a Shirahoshi and put -4 on the Cavendish. And then remove the Cavendish with a Rebecca Brook play. Develop a couple blockers, try and live a turn, but we're really just not getting anywhere. Law's going to have 4... Law's going to have at least 3 crazy swings next turn with the 2 big Laws and the leader. Even the Zeus, you never know, he might have hands. Currently no removal in the Law's hand, but he can just pick up that Zeus for 1 Don with his leader effect. Then play it again to remove one of the blockers, which is incredibly powerful. Lucci considering his options deeply. And we're going to put -1 on the Bedge by the look of it. Opting to remove that Bedge at this point in the game. I think if we could have removed that last turn, we maybe have a slightly better chance. But this turn, I think it's going to be too little too late, sadly, for this Lucci player. We do have all 10 Don available to us. The most options possible, but I'm excited to see what he goes for here. We are going to see 4 Don come down rested. Surely for one of those blockers. Either a Rebecca or a Shirahoshi coming down here is what we're likely to see. 5 from Khalifa. Okay, 5 from Khalifa. This Law player, I think you can safely just take some of these hits. We've got 4 life, there's no danger. We've even got a blocker, got a 2k in hand. Lucci's board is not optimal. But we are seeing him eye up countering once more, giving this Lucci not even an ounce of hope. Eyeing up the Bonnie blocker as our counter of choice. And we are... Lucci's turning around. We are going to see the counter with that Bonnie blocker. Just 1k, 5 on 5. This has been a very long game. Both of these players carefully considering their choices. We do see the Shirahoshi coming down, minusing down that Cavendish. 2-1 cost, and we do see the removal on the Bedge and the Cavendish. Believe the Bedge's effect will allow him to protect the Cavendish, which is pretty interesting. We've only got 1 blocker, which is not great. Yeah, returning those 3 cards, the Bedge's effect, putting the Cavendish back into life, healing the Law up to 5 Don. 5 Don is crazy. You don't see a Law player having 5 Don, 5 life. You don't see a Law player having 5 life very often. And we are going to take that final swing of 7 with the Lucci. No problems there. And then the Law player is going to begin his turn. Draws that restand Law. Nothing really to restand, but I don't think we need it. I think a simple swings of 9, 9, and then a lot. We can do better numbers than that, but this Lucci player with only the 1 blocker, I don't think there's much chance for him to come back here. Looks like the swings are going to be 11, 11, 11. Insane. This Lucci player is going to have a real tough time countering out of 2 11s. And we do see the game there. Congratulations to GY Law. Didn't expect that. When we saw this matchup, you've got to think it's all to play for the Lucci. But when you whiff those KO options in the early game, as Lucci sometimes does now, he has less consistency for those KO options. Really needs that reduction to stick to the board. And that turn, where the Law player was able to play out the Cavendish, summon the 5-cost Law, and then play the Zeus to remove the boon from the Lucci player's board, that was such a pivotal turn, because the Lucci player just didn't have anything to do on that follow-up. If we'd had the reduction on the board, maybe we can do some kind of removal, but without that boon sticking, really tough match for the Lucci. Massive well played to this green-yellow Law player. I'm excited to see more green-yellow Law, hopefully, as we go into the top 8. I'll be back with that soon. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.